Hello. Welcome to Season XV of the Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. In each episode, we both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about what we liked, what we hated, if we were scared, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season, we're watching movies from the 90s and talking about how they fit into the larger picture of 90s horror and how each year from that decade stacks up against the others. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the episode. All right, so we are back into week 2 of our 1990s reviews for Season XV. Mm-hmm. After a brief hiatus reviewing Twilight Zone episodes in season the 14th, because it's our show and we can do whatever the hell we want.
Yes, sir.
We're back to our regularly scheduled programming. Each week we're picking a movie and we're talking about it. Yeah. But with an overarching theme. That overarching theme is that we are doing movies from the 1990s that are not sequels, that did not have a budget over $100 million, and that we've not talked about before. We're revisiting the 90s, giving them an honest chance to maybe show us a side of the 90s that isn't sequels and cash grabs.
Yeah, like, hey, this is what we can really show what happened in the 90s. Yeah. It wasn't all sequels. It wasn't all bringing the border down between the East and West. No. It was about goddamn spiders.
That's true. There was a bit of a creature feature resurgence in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, because we did recently, we talked about the movie Anaconda. And at the time, I remember us being like, where did that come from? Like, what other creature movies were happening at the time? Like, it just seemed really out of left field. Mm-hmm. But in 1990, we had a couple of kind of big monster type movies.
I like it.
Yeah. And so one of the ones, did you want to talk about other movies that you had considered for this week?
Yeah, just one. Listen, guys, I know I probably let you guys down weekly, okay? Just let me have it. I struggled with this with my pick, so I picked Arachnophobia. I paused saying that because we were saying Arachnophobia funny for like 10 minutes before this started. Technically after it started too. You guys just won't hear it. But I struggled because I love Tremors. I love Misery. But I have never seen Arachnophobia.
Same.
We owned it when I was growing up. Like, I always saw the VHS. But, you know, I wasn't allowed to watch it. I don't know. And I just didn't care to, I guess, maybe.
I have to say that is wildly surprising to me, given some of the other movies I know you were allowed to watch in the same time period.
I think by the time it got to the point where, like, I was like, I'm just going to watch this and hope I don't get caught. Like, DVDs were more popular at that time, I think. I don't know. But no, I agree. I actually bought Arachnophobia on VHS too.
Nice.
Just old days. But the point here is, I didn't pick Tremors. I didn't pick Misery. But we'll do it one day. Okay? I knew that Misery would come around because, like, I want to do that anyways to see your take on it. But I picked another horror comedy instead. Arachnophobia.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I am very excited to talk about Arachnophobia. It's kind of always been on my list, but it's not one I ever saw. To be honest with you, I really thought it was an 80s movie for some reason. That was where it was filed away in my brain.
It's probably started in the 80s, at least, filming.
Yeah, for sure. But it really, my perception of the movie ended up being quite different than what it was. And
same, actually.
In some ways good, in some ways not as good, but I'm excited to talk about it with you. So
yeah, no, this can be. Listen, it's not a sequel. At least it's not. You know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, fucking 10.
Yeah,
I don't know why I attacked that movie.
Silent Night, Deadly Night 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are curious to know more about some of the ridiculous sequels that came out in 1990, go back and listen to our episode from last week. We listed them at the beginning, and it's amazing. Also, don't let me forget to come back at the end of this episode and talk about where 1990 stands in our power rankings of years for 90s movies. Yep. It's not going to be really exciting because it's the only one we've covered so far. Yeah, but we can at least set it up and talk about how we're going to judge and evaluate going forward.
Okay.
Cool. Well, then let's get into it. I will do a quick introduction, and then we'll get into the do spiders really hiss like that details.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In 1990, Buena Vista Pictures Distribution brought us Arachnophobia, a suspenseful creature horror film. This movie stars Jeff Daniels as a medical doctor with a crippling fear of spiders who has recently moved his family to a small town to start his own practice. In a totally plausible series of events, a rare, previously undiscovered species of spider finds its way into his barn where it starts living and reproducing. As you might have guessed, a face-off becomes inevitable, and both hilarity and horror ensue. Arachnophobia was made on a budget of $22 million, and it brought in over $53 million at the box office. It can currently be rented for streaming on Amazon Prime Video.
And Tubi.
Was it on Tubi?
Well, it is now. It wasn't.
It wasn't 3 weeks ago when I watched this. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, is it really, are there really people out there that I don't think I have arachnophobia, but I just don't want to mess. I have no desire. I see a spider, I'm just I think you kill mosquitoes. If so, cool. If not, you're also doing a piss poor job at it because there's mosquitoes everywhere. But
earn your keep.
I know that some people have a really intense fear, but it's just unrealistic to me because it's just stomp on it. Doesn't matter how big the spider, you just stomp on it. I also have a size 13 boot, so what can you say?
You're speaking from a position of privilege.
I am. You're right. The only time in my life where I've had some sort of privilege, I'm going to own it.
Yeah. I'm going to relish it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was a very Hollywood movie. To me, it felt like a very, it's made it through the multiple rounds of drafts of scripts. So it had the recurring jokes in the dialogue early on, you just made that up, didn't you? And how that kept coming around. And then lots of conversations that take exactly the amount of time to get the characters from one location to the next and cover all the relevant information they need to do. And it's just interaction, we're done, car door shuts, I drive away. It had all of the polishings of a Hollywood movie, which I feel was very drastically different than what Jacob's Ladder was. That one felt almost more expressionist art than Campbell's soup cans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Steven Spielberg had something to do with this film. That's just a guess. I'm pretty sure I read that, but I will say that I went an awkward amount of time going into this film before I discovered that it was also supposed to be a comedy. And you guys wouldn't understand the relief I had when I looked and I was like, oh, it's supposed to be a comedy. Because I was like, there we go. It's not.
When you're it's not taking itself as seriously as it could be.
Yeah. At that point. But still, yeah, I went. Yeah. It was dude, it was a long time. It's yeah, this is actually kind of funny. Oh, yeah. It's supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh, that they're not just so bad they're funny. They're trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like the beginning of this one, the intro, was equal parts Jurassic Park and Anaconda. It just had that 90s kind of going into the jungle feeling to it. Yeah. And they also had the technology aspect where they were setting off the giant bug bomb and stuff. And I don't know. This one, I had said before that in my mind, this was a very 80s movie. It did not feel that way. To me, this definitely felt kind of what I think of as typical for a decent budget 90s movie.
No, I couldn't agree more. This has what I like with 90s films in it, the soundtrack, and I'm just
Jeff Daniels is a fast-talking doctor.
Oh man, you talk about easy on the eyes. I'm just kidding, but there were times where he did say a few things. I was like, "That's Dumb and Dumber." Like this was like 5 years before that. Yeah. I was like, "Why wouldn't they have let you in that, man?" Like anyway, that's the whole thing.
Yeah,
but it had Jeff Daniels, it had John Goodman, it had the mom that's in everything, Harley Jane Kozak. She was like a 90s mom. Mm-hmm. Everyone knew. Yeah, I was living large this whole film.
Yeah, the parts of it that I had trouble with were like the intro up until the point where the spider is in the barn. Like there were just a lot of reaches there for how the events were taking place. But I mean, like they had to get the spider there for some reason, so whatever. But then most of the movie had this like very specific vibe that was just kind of on repeat, but was equally creepy somehow every time they did it, where you had these scenes where there's like this story of the doctor in a new town trying to fit in and like not fitting in and being worried about losing money on the house that he bought and stuff. So there's like that, but then overlaid on top of that are all these scenes where no one realizes it, but they're just about to get bit and die immediately. And you know that, but the characters don't. And so, like the scenes where the spider is going towards the cat, but then somebody picks up the cat at the last minute and walks off. Or, somebody's like reaching somewhere and the spider comes in like right as they, pull their hand away or something. And so it really built that feeling of intense suspense for very brief moments that I think were really effective, but mostly because also lots of people did die. Like for a movie that felt this like polished, it was weird that there was just so much death.
Yeah, there's so much death, but there's also like the deaths were pretty intense in itself too. Like I felt like with the people who were bit by the spiders, like it legit seemed like they were in pain when filming.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I had in my notes was that this movie could have been absolutely terrible. Like, if it was normal horror movie acting the whole way through, it would have been so stupid it would have been beyond enjoyment. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the performances were actually good enough to sell what was happening in the moments and to create like that empathy with you on their behalf. Like Jeff Daniels is a good actor and he sold his character, but even like kind of the supporting people, whenever they were in danger or whatever was going on, like some of them were very like caricature-y.
Oh yeah.
But you also like felt for them in that moment because they were so unaware of like the danger that was around them and stuff. And like this isn't like a super serious horror movie, but it still managed to make me stressed out and uncomfortable on several occasions.
Yeah. I think what we had with this one that may be the difference from a couple other same style, I guess, is like I felt like the supporting cast, like the cast in this film, like Jeff Daniels' relationship seemed like a real relationship. Like Dilbert, John Goodman's character seemed like a goofball. I mean, like it just all worked out where like that's almost like a formula of what we see nowadays where like you got to have a kid who's the funny, you got to have a guy who's smart, whatever. And now it's like you have to do it where it's like back then maybe the difference is like, hey, John Goodman can also play like funny characters. Let's consider him for this role kind of thing. Yeah. Like it's almost more forced back then or now than it was back then. And I think that's one of the things that kind of saved the movie because if you think about it, if you just write this movie down on paper,
right.
It's pretty standard as far as like, animal makes its way into this and then they're going to terrorize. I mean, could be a demon, that could be a vampire. I mean, it's just all the above. That's a standard story, but you needed to kind of have the cast and the caricatures to support that, especially if it's going to be partial comedy.
Yeah, overall, I thought it came out to be a very cohesive package, and it was kind of bookended by stuff that made me roll my eyes, but in between, there was plenty of like good, just like creepy horror. Mm-hmm. And I think the scene that got me the most was when like the old doctor had been on the treadmill and you see the spider goes into his house shoe. Yeah. And then you see him putting it on and you know the spider's in there. And it like, I had my hands on the side of my face. I was just like, no, don't do it. Yeah. But just that feeling of anxiety. And the thing that worked for me really well in this movie was when it was a very believable setup. Like, there's a spider in my shoe. If I put the shoe on, I'm going to get bit. Like, there's nothing unbelievable about that. Where I had less resonance with it was maybe like the final confrontation between Jeff Daniels and the giant spider that was like the face off. And then the fire spider came after him from the grave. Like, it got to be a bit much at that point when it was like super powered spider, you know.
Do you think that like if they had gone out, I guess, easier, it would have been worse though? Do you know, like if...
Oh, sure. Like if he just stepped on it and the movie was over, like, yeah, that would have been, yeah.
I think that actually would have been pretty funny though, now that I think about it. Like, I like your ending more, but no, I agree. I think it's, you know, I think it's one of those where you're like, this is definitely over the top, but what hasn't been, you know, throughout this whole film kind of thing. Like even the doctor deciding they're not going to retire and then they're just kind of screwed. Like that whole, all of it was over the top. But I actually, now that you say, should have just stomped on it, I really wish that was just the actual ending. Like it was just John Goodman, just like, bam, stomped, and they're dead. And it's just like, the movie's over.
Yeah. Roll the credits.
Yeah.
The scene that really got to me more, or that I thought was like a really good kind of climax to the movie, was when all the spiders were swarming the house and the way they were just like coming through every crack and gap, you know, in the between the wall and the door and stuff. That was really intense. And they're like climbing up the outside of it and they're trying to figure out how to get out of the house. Yeah. That gave me this like super strong feeling of just like claustrophobia. And it was almost like a zombie swarm, except I don't honestly think there's much chance that a zombie horde would ever swarm my house.
Right.
But I could worry myself if I thought too much about the idea of a spider infestation. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I think having spiders, even though there was kind of the goofy part of, oh yeah, it's this ancient untouched species that somehow made its way to Middle America, is silly. But the idea of like, yeah, there are lots of spiders around and some of them are very poisonous. And if there were a bunch of them in your house, that would be absolutely horrific.
Well, I mean, you know, the prime example is my old pops, dude. He almost died from that. Like,
yeah, I forgot about
legit,
that.
When I was 16, like he almost died from, he had 2 spider bites and it got to his blood or something. I don't even remember at this point. So, yeah, I mean, I could definitely, like, and I also feel like spider infestation is, like, what, like, if I were to give it like, an award, like, we were back in high school and you give it awards to kids, like, best hair, it would be, like, most likely reason I burn my house down. Because I think at that point, it's exactly. Like I would legit be trying to use like hairspray and flame to like burn them, and I would accidentally burn my house down. But if it was a zombie situation, I'm not burning my house down. I gotta stay in this. But like when the spiders, it's like I want to go out, but out's not necessarily safe. These things could be anywhere.
Exactly,
kind of thing. Yeah. And I think for me, my favorite scenes were just any of the times that like that scene you were just referencing where like the spider in the shoe, but like any of those moments, because I just had this like feeling deep down, like for some reason, like I knew what that would feel like it would be like a weird sharp.
Yeah. It's a super relatable horror, right?
Yeah. I assume this is what people who live close to the ocean feel like when they watch Jaws is where I'm getting at, you know, cause it's like, I don't have any scare. Like I don't have any fear watching Jaws and I'm in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But you know what I just stomped on last night? A damn spider in my house.
Yeah.
You know? So But man, anytime it sunk its teeth in or whatever, fangs or whatever, oof, you just felt it.
Yeah, it was very, very uncomfortable. And especially the idea of there being a spider in your popcorn.
Oh, you kidding me?
They're coming for me where I live.
That's a personal attack, dude.
I know.
Yeah.
Don't ruin popcorn for me. There's one thing that keeps me watching movies, and for the most part, that's popcorn.
Exactly.
This is a paired relationship. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going to movies and eating a hot dog, watching a movie. No. Kidding me? Popcorn.
Yeah. Also, like nachos. Like eating nachos in the dark just seems dangerous. You're going to have queso on your shirt.
Yeah, and also you're going to get the scoots from that nacho cheese, so just don't eat it. Come on, people. Eat your weight in popcorn like the rest of us.
If no one saw it when you said cheese, I just assume you did air quotes.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Got to make it accessible.
Yeah.
So the end of the movie, everyone lives happily ever after. They move back to San Francisco and talk about how they're so happy to be back in a world they can control. And then there's an earthquake followed by flash the credits and play the song Don't Bug Me. Yeah. Very, very Hollywood ending that annoyed me.
That was like a rich person's humor.
Yeah.
You know, where they're just like, oh, that's the equivalent. When I say like, they're the type of person that laughs at a commercial comedy. Not meaning to offend anyone with that, but that's what I kind of mean with that. Where it's just like, what? Like, are you serious? Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean,
that's usually my opinion.
And that's what I was getting at, saying that this felt like it had been through like several rounds of working on drafts of the script in like a Hollywood writer's room. Like it just had all those kind of like polishes where, you know, the callback jokes and the, you know, sort of irony, but like not. I feel like there had to have been a deliberate effort to lighten the mood of this movie because there was so much like graphic death and stuff. And so it was just, I don't know, it felt kind of uneven in a few parts because of that.
Yeah.
But in general, the parts of this movie that make it worth watching are the anxiety of watching someone else put their foot into a shoe that you know a spider's inside. That's just primal fear right there.
Yeah, and if you're, for the record, like if you guys are ever I work in my garage a lot. Anytime I put my gloves on, I smack them out. Like,
oh yeah,
it's just in me where I do that. Mm-hmm. Even though I've never had that happen to me, I've never had a spider. But it's just like if you're camping or anything, put your boots upside down, check them before you put them on. Check your glove. I mean, because that trips me out, dude. Putting your hand.
Yeah.
I don't know how people go noodling.
No,
you know,
that actually would make a great horror movie.
For the record, people who are not from Oklahoma, they call noodling when you go and stick your hand in a hole in a lake or pond to catch. I mean, hell, you can catch like 50-pound catfish in those things.
Yeah, the goal is
terrifying.
To get a catfish to bite your arm so you can wrestle it back to the surface.
Yeah, and then you see like dudes out there who are like professionals that do it, and they have like 2 fingers on their hand. And they're like those goddamn turtles, man.
Because there could be literally anything else in that hole.
Yeah. That terrifies me. That's the real phobia right there.
Yeah.
Not seeing the unknown. That's arachnophobia.
Arachnophobia? No. Noodleophobia? Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cats? Probably catfishophobia.
Yeah. So, the thing we're supposed to do at the end of the episode, which we'll hopefully remember to keep doing as we move forward.
Maybe.
We're real good at starting ideas but not finishing them.
Well, it's like every other episode, too.
Yeah, but in 1990, so far, over the course of this experiment we call the Horrific Podcast, we have reviewed the movies It, the original made-for-TV, parts 1 and 2, Jacob's Ladder, and Arachnophobia. And I'd say that is not a bad way to start off. I mean, when I read the list of sequels last week that came out in 1990, I was like, that year blows for horror movies.
Yeah.
But this list, if somebody's like, oh, you know, what's representative of horror in 1990? You toss those 3 bad boys out there, it's actually not a bad start.
Yeah, and the combo that we had with this, because I started because we're recording this on a different week than last episode, watching Jacob's Ladder first, and then next week watch. So I watched them right after each other because we're recording the same day. I'm sorry, people were lying, but I almost needed Arachnophobia to kind of get over the Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah,
Jacob's Ladder exhausted me, and so I kind of needed this piece. And it's almost like I don't know if you guys have ever watched something that's kind of just like screw with you so much that you're like, I gotta put on like The Office or something to like get my brain back to forgetting all the trauma. And so I'm saying so far this is the best year we've had.
Yeah, of the 1 year that we've reviewed for Season XV so far, this one's number one.
Yeah. Hey, listen, been a good year.
But,
33 years old, dude.
But look, 1990. Don't get comfortable, because next week we're moving on to 1991, and it's coming for you.
Yeah, you're just holding on to the coattails of the 80s, 90s. The year 1990. Just
You're barely even in the 90s.
Thank you.
Just squeaked your way in there.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, if you were born in the 90s, you can't consider yourself a 90s baby. Are you kidding me?
You're basically spicy 1989. Get out of here.
Yes, you are. I love it. Let's do this. Yeah, you know what? You're on the bottom now. 1990.
Yeah, 1990 is now ranked last of the years that we've covered so far this season. So there you go. That's what you get for popping off.
I love causing problems and then taking it out on them too, man. That's called gaslighting.
Iraq, no more 1990 movies phobia, am I right?
You're damn right. Screw the 90s. Fuck Misery, dude. I hate that movie.
91 all day.
Yeah. Can we make it 92? Odd numbers weird me out.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com or hit us up on the IG. That's what the kids call Instagram. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Arachnophobia.
No thank you phobia.
No thank you.
Arachnophobia.
That's what it should have been.
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Arach means spiders. No means fuck out. Phobia means you're scared of them. That's why you said no.
Arachnophobia.
That's perfect. Yep.